Glad to have y'all in here on a Monday. Took some time off last week. For the time being, I'm going to give you some updates on what's going on. I'm glad to have y'all in here on a Monday. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. You can follow the show at Logan Ward Show. You can also follow my personal Twitter at Logan B. Ward and Instagram as well. Be sure to follow 12 Ounce Sports on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever social media that you use the most. Go follow them on that social media platform. But glad to have y'all in here on a Monday. I know it's been a couple days since I've been on. So we're going to give you some updates on what's going on with the show and then get into it. We got a lot to get into. Michael Jordan talk, Russell Wilson talk. The Last Dance concluded yesterday, so we'll talk about that. And live sports, we're back. We'll talk about that. I mean, we'll talk about it being back and if we actually enjoyed it. What was the thoughts? So we'll get into that coming up here on the Logan Ward Show. But first, I wanted to give a little update. So as you can tell, I wasn't on the show, didn't have the show the last couple of days last week. And the reason for this is just because, look, it's hard. This obviously is not my full-time gig. I have a full-time job that I work on, and 8 to 5 every day, Monday through Friday, my job, and then doing this on top of it, which I'm very grateful for. But it is difficult. It can get difficult, and without any live sports, especially doing a show Monday through Friday about sports with no sports on is difficult. It's difficult. It's difficult to come up with topics that are interesting and engaging that people want to listen to, because right now people are kind of just chilling. It's not, I don't think that sports are a huge factor right now, especially sports talk. Now, there are shows out there that are still going on. There's shows out there that are doing a fantastic job. But when it's just me sitting here talking to you, I don't have anybody. I don't have producers. I don't have anything. It's just me. So with it just being me, it's difficult to come up with interesting topics, to try to engage people on stuff that isn't new and on topics that aren't new. And that's been the difficult thing. So for the time being, I think I'm going to go Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. I think for the next couple of weeks until live sports starts coming back, and we'll see in the future, going Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, I think is easiest for me. It's going to make a better show. I'm being more engaged on the shows, because sometimes I don't have anything to talk about. I didn't have time to do the research that I felt I needed to. I didn't have time to sit down. Like, when you work 8 to 5, you got to spend some time with the wife, got to cook dinner, got to do the house chores. By the time it's 9 o'clock, I got to start working on the show, but then I have to get up really early so that I can do the show. So it's a difficult thing, and I'm not complaining that this is difficult. I'm just simply saying that sometimes it's difficult, and I'm going to change some things. Now, I hope that you do know that when I do go off the air a little bit, and I've done this twice now, I've just taken a couple days break. One, I was traveling for work once, and I just couldn't do the show. But I've always tried to change it. I've always tried to get better. I've changed a lot of the visuals. I went with the new logo, new color scheme. We kind of changed that direction. And I like it. So know that I am still working on the show. And I am working on the show. So I think we're going to do Monday, Wednesday, Fridays for the time being, until live sports come back. We had some live sports this week, but it's difficult. And I'm a traditional big, I guess 3 or 4, whatever you want to call it, sports guy. College football, NFL, NBA, college basketball, baseball. That's my wheelhouse. Golf, That's my wheelhouse. I can cover, cornhole, but, I don't think people really like that. People like to talk. People like to engage in conversation with shows. That's why we like topics that we enjoy and topics that we know, because we like to enjoy in the conversation. We like to join the conversation. That's why the MJ LeBron thing is always, I think it's a good thing. People might be tired of it. Guess what? It gets views. It gets views. It gets people talking about it because people want to talk about that. People have their opinions and they want to give their opinions on that. But I just wanted to give you an update on that. So we've changed some stuff visually. I think that the logos and the visuals that we've changed, I think have helped. I think it's a better logo than what it was before. So I'm super excited about that. I had some different variations of it, and this is the one that I like the best. So changing the visuals up a little bit. And so I'm working on it. But for the time being, it's hard to do a Monday through Friday sports show when you don't have live sports and this isn't your full-time gig. And you don't have any producers. And you don't have anybody to help you. It's difficult. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that before we get into the show today. But let's start with the show. So some big news came out last week. And the fact that it's not bigger news is wild to me. The fact that this isn't a bigger deal than what it is wild to me. So Chris Sims on his show, they're talking about Russell Wilson. And he says that Russell Wilson was being shopped around in 2018. And that there were calls with the Cleveland Browns for the number 1 overall pick for Russell Wilson. And obviously it didn't come to fruition. Russell stayed with the Seahawks. The Browns drafted Baker Mayfield, and that was that. But Chris Sims came out and said the report, and then he doubled down on it. This is Chris Sims on the Dan Patrick Show talking about this report and talking about what this was and what he meant.
With you, Chris, that the Seahawks were entertaining the idea of trading him to the Cleveland Browns 2 years ago?
Well, I do believe it started with me, or, I don't know if it started with me. And again, listen, this is something that I know. This is not a rumor. This is something that I found out about, I'm going to say not long after the 2018 NFL draft from some people close to the situation, and then had it confirmed on the other side by the other team involved in it, to where, I made a mention of this during last season, Dan, and it got no traction. I was like, damn, I just let out some breaking news and nobody said anything. And then it just came out organically again here this past week. We were talking about untradeable players and what we call PFT OT with Mike Florio. And, we went, Russell Wilson is one of those untradeable players. And I brought it up again. And I said, hey, the rumors out there are the things that I understand. I shouldn't say rumor. What I know is that, yes, there was talks a little bit between Cleveland and Seattle, and Cleveland giving that first pick of the draft for Russell Wilson. I don't know who struck up the conversation. I would imagine it was Seattle. I mean, it makes sense. Again, Seattle, they were debating on, did they want to make Russell Wilson the highest paid player in football? And I think also added to that, hey, they have an incentive to build the team the way they did originally with Russell Wilson. They saw, hey, if we can get a quarterback on a rookie contract and build it through our running game and our defense, that was successful then one time around already before. So I just think, it was something that was thrown out there. I don't know how serious it ever got, but I do know that that was a very real conversation.
So that's Chris Sims. He was on the Dan Patrick Show last week. And here's my thoughts. Russell Wilson is a top 3 quarterback in this league. If you were to take a quarterback right now, if you were to take a quarterback for next season, you were to have a draft, take a quarterback next season, number 1's Patrick Mahomes, number 2's probably Russell Wilson, number 3's Aaron Rodgers. Those are probably your top 3. Russell Wilson is a top 3 quarterback in this league. Russell Wilson has been a top 3 quarterback in this league for a while. Of his 8 NFL seasons, he's been to the Pro Bowl 6 times. 6 times he's been to the Pro Bowl in his 8 NFL seasons. He's won a Super Bowl. He's been to another Super Bowl where he could have had 2 if they would have ran the ball. I understand that he threw the interception. It was a great play by Malcolm Butler. But he is he's a top 3 quarterback in this league. And here's what baffles me. Is we always want to know the unknown. This is the formula in the NFL right now. Is to win cheap, get a quarterback, and win when they have a cheap contract. It's Jared Goff got to a Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes just won a Super Bowl. The Eagles were able to win a Super Bowl with Carson Wentz on a rookie deal and a backup quarterback in Nick Foles, who's not going to make a lot of money. That's the blueprint. That's what every team in the NFL is trying to emulate. Russell Wilson did the same thing when he won a Super Bowl. He was on his rookie contract. They had a great defense and a run game, and that's how they won the Super Bowl. But when you have a top 3 quarterback, that number 1 overall pick is not the same value as a top 3 quarterback. You're trying to get a quarterback that can be serviceable. If you drafted Baker Mayfield number 1 overall, if you're Seattle, if you made this trade and drafted Baker Mayfield number 1 overall, who's saying you're going to still have that defense? Russell Wilson is a top 3 quarterback in this league. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback. His worst season, statistically, he had 20 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 63% completion percentage, almost 3,500 yards. That's his worst season. He's never had more than 11 picks in a year. And since you've paid him, since 2018 when you paid him, he's gone 35-7, 35 touchdowns to 7 picks, and then last year 31 touchdowns to 5 picks. Russell Wilson is a top 3 quarterback in this league. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback. And you're going to trade him for the number 1 overall pick for an unknown commodity. If you can get 3 more years out of Russell Wilson, I think he's worth it. He has single-handedly took him to the playoffs. And I don't want to hear, well, look, he's taking up the salary cap. He's taking up the salary cap, so they can't pay anybody. The running backs have had injuries. The offensive line is shot. They don't draft the offensive line very well. They have no weapons. They don't draft weapons. They haven't drafted wide receivers except DK Metcalf last year, and guess what happened? He turned out to be pretty good with Russell Wilson. So if I'm Russell Wilson, I want to know, why was I being shopped? And is this going to be a thing that y'all are going to be looking to do again? Because Russell Wilson's already said, hey, I might want to go play somewhere else. My wife's in the entertainment industry. Seattle's definitely not the entertainment hub of America. Go to New York. Go to an LA. I don't think Russell Wilson's going to finish his career in Seattle. But to trade, if you're wanting to trade for the number 1 overall pick, maybe not try to trade second best quarterback in the league. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about The Last Dance. It concluded yesterday. I'll give you my honest thoughts on The Last Dance. Honest thoughts on the entire thing. I'll give you my thoughts on that coming up here on the Logan Ward Show. Are you looking for a new sports book that provides the easiest deposits, the fastest payouts, and the best customer service? Well, then look no further than MyBookie. MyBookie strives to deliver on providing a creative, always expanding selection of sports odds for players at all levels. As a MyBookie player, you'll get the industry's most rewarding loyalty program with payout requests processed in just 48 hours. There are hundreds of casino games and great bonuses on every deposit. You can join MyBookie today for a 50% sign-up bonus up to $1,000. Just use the promo code 12ouncesports.
For the marching exercise, you want to sit down in the center front of your chair, bring your feet shoulder width apart, and form a 90-degree angle with your knees. From here, you're going to lift one foot and raise the opposite arm, just as you march in place in your chair. Make sure you keep that core nice and tight and you breathe into it, and also maintain good posture with a straight back.
DrinkAid, ready for distribution worldwide.
That's what's needed to get to that next level. I'm Rob Pennell, and I'm going to teach you how to be an offensive machine.
Nothing makes us happier at Lexington Law than when our clients cancel our services. Listen to this client call and see what we mean.
Lexington Law Firm, this is Erin.
I would like to cancel my account.
I'm sorry to hear that.
No, don't be. Actually, you guys have done tremendous work for me, and I was working with you for several years now. And my goal was to get a mortgage written by the end of this year, and I just got that mortgage commitment.
That is wonderful.
My credit went from like 440 working with you guys to 700.
Nice.
And I got a very good 4.25% 30-year fixed rate mortgage. I have nothing at all bad to say. If you ever want me to write a testimonial, well, I will. As a matter of fact, I've recommended you to a lot of friends.
Lexington Law has served over 500,000 clients, taking expert action on their credit that has led to the removal of millions of questionable negative items from their credit reports. Call now and learn more about how Lexington Law may be able to help you in the removal of negative items from your credit report, such as collections, late payments, charge-offs, and many others. Call Lexington Law today.
Welcome back to the Logan Ward Show. 12-Ounce Sports Network. Be sure to follow 12-Ounce Sports on all social medias, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you are most active. Be sure to follow them. We have great content from all over the platform, so be sure to follow them as well. Here's the thing about this Last Dance documentary is I enjoyed it. I'll give you my honest opinions on it. I enjoyed the documentary. But I had issues with it. I think that because of the time that it came out. Remember, this wasn't supposed to come out until June. The first episodes weren't supposed to come out until June. It was pushed up by 2 months because of this coronavirus. So the Last Dance was pushed up 2 months. So I thought it was a little rushed. I don't think it's a great documentary. I don't. I think that it's a great highlight reel. It's really cool, but I was, to be honest with you, a little disappointed in it. And I might be in the minority of that. I thought that the timeline was a little clunky. We were told we have 500 hours of footage from the 1998 season. And we barely spent any time in 1998. We barely spent any time in it. I mean, we had all access to 1998 season. And for majority of it, we're in any other year except 1998. We're in any other year except the last one. I know the first episode, you get a little glimpse of it. The last episode, you get a little glimpse of it. But overall, I didn't think we got a ton of 1998, and we're supposed to have all this footage. I also think that it was a way for Jordan to kind of mark off his list who he still was just like, look, I was a bad dude. You couldn't beat me. So, haha. It kind of felt a little bit like a Jordan propaganda piece. And look, I enjoyed it because the time that it came out, in this era of no sports, it was something that I look forward to every Sunday. I like to see the behind-the-scenes stuff, and I'll probably watch it again 1 through 10 continuously. And maybe it'll be a little bit cleaner. But I feel like there was some things that they could have done. Last night, the best moment of last night was Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr's moment last night in the show, spectacular. Spectacular. The tragic passing of his father had something in common with Michael Jordan. They asked Steve, did you ever talk to Michael about this? And he said no. Never did. Thought it was too hard. They should have immediately asked Michael about that. Should have immediately asked him. Mike, when your father passed, Do you know anything about, Steve Kerr's dad? That would have been a perfect moment. And we just skipped over it. We had little storylines within the story, but it was all coming back to Michael Jordan. I think that the documentary was good for what we were needing right now. We were needing something right now. We were needing sports we were need to talk about. We're not able to talk about Game 3 of an Eastern Conference Finals or the Western Conference Finals. We weren't able to talk about that right now. So I think that this documentary gave us something to talk about. It gave us a common thing to talk about. Twitter was going crazy. It's trending on Twitter. It was fantastic. But I think that I just think that it could have been more. And this was perfect for The Last Dance. You come out and there's average, I think, 6 million viewers an episode. I mean, that's insane. Insane. But I didn't think it gave us any new information that we didn't already know. We know that Michael Jordan's a petty guy. He's a competitive guy. We know that. We knew the stories. I guess he confirmed some stories for us. But it didn't really give us anything new, right? It gave us a glimpse more into Phil Jackson's life and Steve Kerr's life. To me, it made Scottie Pippen look like a terrible teammate and a terrible person. It was how many times did we talk about his injuries? We talked about when he had a headache. We talked about when his back was hurting. We talked about him sitting out. I mean, it was terrible for Scottie Pippen. Michael Jordan didn't change anything. He said, yeah. He called Scottie selfish for having the surgery late in the summer. It didn't turn out good for Scottie Pippen. That's the one person that you're like, ooh, this documentary didn't look good on you. Michael Jordan was worried about it wasn't going to look good on him. It didn't look good on Scottie Pippen. And Michael could have said, look, don't put that in. He didn't. I think a little bit of this is like, look, I couldn't have done it without Scottie, but I was the one running this show. Scottie really wasn't that much. And it ignited this debate. We've talked about stuff for the last couple of weeks with this. We've talked about LeBron and MJ. We've talked about the Bulls. Is that the greatest sports dynasty? We've talked about all these things. So I think for the moment, the documentary is good. For the coronavirus moment, it's good. But as a documentary itself, don't think it was that special. I don't. We got some new info. I mean, okay, we got to hear Michael and Isaiah talk about their little spat. I thought that I thought Michael was gonna give it, get a little bit more vindictive about Reggie Miller than he did. He didn't really say much about Reggie last night. I thought he was going to. He did everybody else. He talked about Gary Payton. He laughed at Gary Payton. So, I think the documentary is good for the moment. But I don't think that this was some revelation. I don't think that this was this crazy thing that we needed to be that it was a great documentary. I didn't think it was. But it's out. I'll probably watch all 10 episodes back to back. That way, maybe I can figure out what the timeline is. And it's not that I didn't keep up with the year and stuff. I just didn't understand why we were doing it. We were getting a glimpse of 1998, then going back to 1992, and then getting a glimpse of 98, then a glimpse of 96, but then back to 92. It was a little all over the place. But for what it was, the coronavirus year, in the year of no live sports, I guess you could say it turned out to be pretty good. I guess you can say that it turned out all right. But for me, felt like it should have been more. There should have been something. It could have been better. To me, it could have been better. Now, you might have loved every second of it, and don't want to change any of it. And that's your prerogative, and you can absolutely do that. But for me, I thought it was a little clunky, a little weird, but, again, that's just me. We're going to play, so before last week I talked to Jake Germany. He's a musician, artist from Nashville. He came on the show to talk about how the coronavirus has infected him and his life, really. His love for sports. He's a huge sports fan, an avid New Orleans Saints fans. And we talked about The Last Dance as well. So I want to bring back that interview with Jake Germany here. And then after that, we have still a lot of different stuff to get into. So we'll talk about that coming up here on the Logan Ward Show.
I'm just in Nashville hanging out.
So what's the first thing that you're going to do post-quarantine?
Probably go on tour.
So, yeah, you had to cancel your tour. Is that kind of in the works that you're going to start that up once quarantine's over?
Yeah, there are actually 3 different makeup dates. Like there's 3 different options, like A, B, and C, depending on the scenario and when everything opens back up. So we're covered, just waiting.
Now, have y'all talked about like the possibility of going through different states? Like Texas is opening back up, but say California is not going to open back up as soon. Have y'all talked about that, discussed that?
Yeah, a little bit. I just, I don't know. I think that my fans would be upset if I already had this next tour was mainly West Coast. And so obviously I can't go there really right now. But I think that my West Coast fans would feel a little bit hurt if I did another tour and didn't include them. So we're just kind of waiting until everything's open. So it's kind of a equal opportunity situation.
So, well, you were supposed to go on tour, and obviously that was canceled. But you started doing Zoom house shows. How did those go?
Yeah, so I did some house shows like way early on in my career, and some fans on Twitter messaged me and just said like, hey, you should do a show on Zoom for me and all my friends. And I was like, that's actually a really great idea. So I set up a bunch of audio gear in my home studio here in Nashville and tweeted it, and it became a huge thing. And I was doing like 2 shows a night I just did it for a week. And it was kind of first come, first serve. And yeah, it was really crazy because there was one night in particular that the first show had people from the East Coast, but then also people from Australia. And those people would never get to see a show together in real life, but they got to experience these songs that they all love together in one thing. And then the second show was people from upstate New York and then people from San Diego. So literally like the 2 corners of America. It's really cool that these people like who are probably best friends on the internet and have never gotten to go to a show together got to kind of experience that. I think it's really tight.
Yeah. So you haven't put out your album yet.
No.
But I was wondering this with musicians who might have put out an album recently. And I was wondering maybe if like we're going to be getting some new music from people that might have just put something out, but they have nothing else to do. But does this quarantine kind of dampen your creativity? Have you like wrote anything or have you done any of that? Or is it just kind of like, I'm not going to do any of this right now?
No, I mean, I think that it's kind of upped everything and it's challenging a lot of people to figure out a new way to communicate with their audience, through things like that Zoom tour. And I mean, I've got an album that's coming out here in just a couple months, and we're about to start rolling out everything at the end of this month, and so everything's kind of full steam. I've been writing a lot already with my producers and stuff, all like just sending songs back and forth on the internet and recording and sending it back, and then they record some and send it back, and I think everybody's just kind of bored, so they're all just working hard.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was going to be the case, if like it was either, yeah, things are going to get done or no, because I know that musicians, when you're writing music, you have to have something to kind of write about, and if you're not doing anything, what do you write about?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a topic in itself, not doing anything or not being allowed to do anything, and so you kind of try to fight that and find something.
Okay, so this
I
is...
think for...
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, I think that a lot of these people, especially me, I'm on the go so much that I don't really have time to sit down and think. So for me, I'm like, it's like a whole new way of writing, because typically a Fang song, it's a one-time session where I get in the studio and I write a song and record it, and it's done in like 6 hours. And that's what goes onto the internet, and that's what people hear. And so for right now, I've got days and weeks and months to just like sit on stuff. So it's a whole different thing for me.
When you write, do you usually have lyrics first or the rhythm first, the beat first?
Usually some kind of beat. I make something and I'll loop it, and then I mumble. I like mumble gibberish for a while on top of it and different melodies. And then once I find some melodies that feel cool, I kind of just like put the puzzle pieces together.
So, okay, this is a sports show. I told you when we were talking about doing this that we're going to talk some sports because you are an avid sports fan. And you played sports a lot growing up, I know.
Yeah.
But here's an interesting thing, because as artists, do you feel that sports, because it's all competition in sports. I mean, the goal is to beat the other person across from you. But as an artist, there's not that. How do you kind of balance, because I know you're a competitive person, Jake.
Yeah.
How do you balance that being competitive, but also the artistic side? Is there people that you're like, you know what, I need to make a better song than that person?
Gotcha. I mean, there are a lot of people like that. Luckily, Nashville's not near as bad as like LA. LA is very competitive. It's a very dog-eat-dog kind of situation there. But in Nashville, I think there's still a competitiveness as far as just wanting to like further the platform, you know. We all play on the same team, so we all want to do as well as we can. But for me, I think it's almost like, I mean, I don't do CrossFit at all, but I think that it's kind of like a CrossFit mentality of like competing with yourself. I always want to further myself, and I know what my goals are, and I know what other people are capable of doing, but I want whatever I'm going to do and whatever I'm going to be the best version of it. So I'm very competitive of my own self. If I put out a song, I want the next song to be even better. And if I put out an album, I want the next album to be even better.
But has there ever been a time where you're just thinking, I want this album to be better than this person, or, you know, or you listen to music and you're like, sure. I think that I could do it better?
Sure. But I mean, I think that in music, whereas in sports, it's unhealthy to think that way. And so in sports, I always felt that way. I always wanted to be the best player on the field or on the court or whatever. But in music, I think it's a bit more being humble gets you further.
But how do you switch? How do you flip that switch? I mean, how do you go back and forth between the two? Because you're competitive when we play outside pickup basketball.
Yeah. That's because I'm better than you.
Oh, that's not true, but
no, I don't know. I think it's just two different worlds for me. It's just like a left brain, right brain thing.
Interesting. So you have a new doc coming out. How did that kind of come to be?
Well, it all happened actually before the quarantine. But I wrote this whole album, and the album's kind of a somewhat concept album about just like being in your room and just dealing with your feelings and your emotions and whatnot. And I kind of realized while I was writing this album, like I wanted it to feel important. I wanted it to feel important to my fans as well as myself and be true to me. So I was trying to think of when music meant the most to me, or like when it made the biggest impact in me. And it was when I was probably in middle school, early high school, and I would come home from school and just like shut my bedroom door and listen to an album front to back and like read the liner notes that were in the little CD booklet and stuff. And just kind of try to live in the world that the album created. And so I was trying to make an album that created a world and allowed the fans to live in it. So with that in mind, I had this idea to walk across Nashville with a friend of mine, and we recorded the whole thing where we walk around Nashville and go to these bedrooms that are important to what, my artist career is here in Nashville. So we go to my drummer's place. We go to my friend, Reggie, who's an artist as R. Lamar. We go to his place. We go to the guy that does all of my lighting production for my tours. We went to his place and we did all this stuff, and we played, there were interviews the whole time as we're walking, as well as with the guests. And then I played some form of like a stripped version of a song in each bedroom as well.
How many episodes are there? Is this a Last Dance 10-part documentary?
I wish. No, it's a 5-part doc. And then after that is when like all the music starts finally dropping.
Now, have you been watching The Last Dance?
I have been.
Because you're all 90s basketball.
I am.
Yeah. I think that in the next episodes we'll be seeing
I've purchased a pair of Jordans since then.
You have?
The doc
Which
started
ones?
As well. Oh, yeah. I got the Jordan 5.
Look,
which I used to have when I was a kid. Those were my first Jordans, and I traded a pair of the Adidas Kobe's, which looked like space shoes. I traded a pair of those and a pair of Nike Shox to a kid in 6th grade for a pair of Jordan 5s. So they were very important to me.
Those Jordan Retro 1s, man, those are sick.
I have the Retro 1s, and I have the Travis Scott 1s as well.
Yeah, so I know that you watch 90s basketball, and you're the big old Stockton Malone. I feel like we're going to be seeing a lot of Stockton Malone on this next episode because they're going to be getting beat. But is Stockton your favorite player?
No, I think it's just like the era. I like Stockton as just like a feed guy. I think that he's just a very straightforward basketball player, and he knows his role. And so I like Stockton and Malone, mainly because I'm also competitive in video games and in NBA Jam, specifically NBA Jam Tournament Edition, not the non-tournament edition. But in Tournament Edition, if I use Stockton and Malone, I can beat literally anybody.
For the marching exercise, you want to sit down in the center front of your chair, bring your feet shoulder width apart, and form a 90-degree angle with your knees. From here, you're going to lift one foot and raise the opposite arm, just as you march in place in your chair. Make sure you keep that core nice and tight and you breathe into it, and also maintain good posture with a straight back.
DrinkAid, ready for distribution worldwide.
That's what's needed to get to that next level. I'm Rob Pennell, and I'm going to teach you how to be an offensive machine.
Nothing makes us happier at Lexington Law than when our clients cancel our services. Listen to this client call and see what we mean.
Lexington Law Firm, this is Erin.
I would like to cancel my account.
I'm sorry to hear that.
No, don't be. Actually, you guys have done tremendous work for me, and I was working with you for several years now. And my goal was to get a mortgage written by the end of this year, and I just got that mortgage commitment.
That is wonderful.
My credit went from like 440 working with you guys to 700.
Nice.
And I got a very good 4.25% 30-year fixed rate mortgage. I have nothing at all bad to say. If you ever want me to write a testimonial, well, I will. As a matter of fact, I've recommended you to a lot of friends.
Lexington Law has served over 500,000 clients, taking expert action on their credit that has led to the removal of millions of questionable negative items from their credit reports. Call now and learn more about how Lexington Law may be able to help you in the removal of negative items from your credit report, such as collections, late payments, charge-offs, and many others. Call Lexington Law today.
Be sure to follow, subscribe on YouTube, Logan Ward Show, subscribe on YouTube at Logan Ward, to our channel. Usually put one segment up a day. All of our interviews, if you've missed any of our interviews, be sure to go to our YouTube channel as well. You can see them. We've had some really great people to talk to. Hopefully lining up some more interviews coming up here in the next couple of days as well. So that's some exciting things going on. So be sure to follow us on YouTube so that you can stay up to date. If you've missed any of our interviews with Jake Germany or John Franklin Myers, any of those interviews, you can find those on our YouTube channel as well. Sports are starting to pick back up. We're starting to see the NFL. They're opening up their facilities. The NBA is starting to open up some facilities, and we're getting to the point where could there be live sports in the near future? Yes. I had my NBA playoff format of what I would do. Now that we're getting closer to that time, I think I'm going to redo it later this week as well. And then also, I'm going to give you my NFL predictions coming up. I'm going to look at all 200-plus games, make a prediction for all 200-plus games, and give you my divisions. Go division by division of who I think is going to win the division. So that will be coming up here in the near future as well. Again, we're going to be doing Monday, Wednesday, Fridays for here on for a little while until we get some live sports action. So be sure to follow us on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at Logan B. Ward. You can also follow the show at Logan Ward Show. And follow us on Twitter so that you can stay up to date with all the information. You can also like my page on Facebook at Logan Ward Show. We have a lot of support on that Facebook page. We've reached over 600 page likes on that. So huge shout out. Thank y'all for the support. And hopefully, we're going to be getting some cool things coming on later on. So glad to have y'all in there with me. That's going to do it for us today. We'll be back on Wednesday to talk some NFL. I'll give you my new and improved NBA playoff format and what I would do if I was the NBA. So that's going to be coming up soon next on Wednesday. So that's going to do it for us. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. Be sure to follow 12 Ounce Sports on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you use the most. Be sure to keep in touch with us there. That's going to do it. We'll be back on Wednesday. This has been the Logan Ward Show on 12 Ounce Sports.